So we had an interesting meeting on the Saturday that's just gone. We had the Dublin Racing Festival. Now, because it hasn't occurred before, I wasn't sure how to advise you as to what to expect, but actually it turned out to be really interesting for the wrong reasons. But that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. If you're interested in learning to trade successfully on sports, then why not visit the BetAngel Academy, where we have more detailed videos. So yeah, we had the Dublin Racing Festival, and I was pretty interested in it because there are 3 meetings that take place at Leopardstown, and basically what they've done is they've taken all the best races out there and put it all into one big meeting. So I was like, yay! You know, we've got good quality racing, loads of group racing, one after another, and it should be really good. And you know, at the edge of my mind, I was thinking, you know, I could smash this. But when I turned up, did you notice the but? But when I turned up on the Saturday, it was obvious to me, sort of fairly early on, that the markets just weren't quite behaving themselves. And it was one of those days that I really don't like, where, you know, I've got a view on how the day is likely to pan out, and then you sit down and you realise very quickly that it's just not panning out at all like you imagined. And this is pretty much what we saw on this particular Saturday. So, and I spotted it very early on. I put up a tweet on one of the early Grade 1 races, where I just sort of said, you know, this is utterly ridiculous for a race of this quality. This doesn't make any sense. And I could tell fairly quickly from there that, you know, the market should have behaving one way and they were behaving completely differently. To summarise it really, I expected the markets to perform in a fairly defined characteristic. I mean, these are good quality horses, it's good prize money. The form has been researched, everybody knows what's going on, everybody knows everything about it. So you'd expect the markets to conform to a certain pattern. And yet, bang, straight away, it was pretty obvious that that wasn't the case. And so it sort of threw me off my axis slightly. I was going in to trade them in a certain way, and they just weren't doing what I expected at all. So it took me 2 or 3 cycles, and by cycles I mean you trade Leopardstown, you do all the other meetings, and then you're back to Leopardstown again, and then you know, and so on. So yeah, it took me a few cycles to get a handle on exactly how I should be trading it, and so I wasted probably about half the session just trying to work out what's going on and what I should do about it. So it was pretty disappointing for such a high profile event. For the first time, it was pretty disappointing, but because I'd never traded it before, and because this meeting had never existed before, I didn't know how to advise people how to trade it, because each meeting has different characteristics. The Cheltenham Field is different from a Royal Ascot, which is different from a Guineas, which is different from a Derby, which is different from a Goodwood. So yeah, next year I'm hoping it doesn't behave exactly the same way, but if it does, I'll be ready. But yeah, you know, the interesting thing about it was, after that first tweet where I just said this is absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense, we then went on to the feature race of the entire day, and a Mullins horse named Melon, and then we just had the most bizarre chart for such a high quality race. The price came in a fair bit, got backed in heavily, and then just went. It was like the space shuttle taking off. You know, there was a roar of the engines and off it went into the atmosphere. It was mental. So again, I tweeted that was just crazy. And I think part of it was me telling people who were following me what I was thinking about the markets and what was going on. Indeed, if you look in the forum, you can see the comments were echoed around the forum. Everybody was saying the same sort of thing. And then we get to the early part of this week, and then suddenly we're alerted to the fact that the authorities are looking into the actual activities around that. Why did the price on Melon get backed into 3.5 and then fly out in a very, very short period of time, massively? And the funny thing is, if the authorities gave me a call, I could describe to them exactly why that happened, because I gather all of the data from the market, and if I very often see things real time, and if I don't see it real time, then I'll go back and look at the data and analyse it, because it's sort of like a football manager looking at a team after they've just lost a match. you look at it and you try and see what you could learn from that and whether you could have spotted that going forward. But I could see fairly clearly on the day, I almost forgot what I was saying there. You could see fairly clearly on the day that melon was sort of coming in a fair bit, but it wasn't being backed significantly heavy, because I thought it was strange when I was seeing the price coming in that it was coming in and I didn't pick up on massive amounts of backing activity, but I could see it elsewhere within the market. And then at some point it just flew off. But the interesting thing was, and you know, lots of people will be saying, oh, it's all bent, you know, the horse finished well tailed off and stuff like that, but nobody was significantly laying it either. So my feeling, looking at the market in retrospect, I picked up on it a little bit during the actual market itself, but not enough to act on it and make a stupendous profit. I just looked at it and just thought, this is, you know, a bizarre market for such a high quality race. So I was being super cautious. But looking at the market in retrospect and in hindsight, you can see where the backing activity was. There was backing, or quite heavy backing, on a number of runners, and there was a lack of it on melon, and that pushed the price out. But it seemed to reach some sort of inflection point where there was just absolutely no money for it whatsoever, and it just happened that money was arriving late on all of the others, and that appeared to be what sent the price out away from what could be deemed normal. But the size and scale of the move is probably one of the biggest I've seen for a race of that quality. You don't generally get those sort of things happening. And okay, the Irish race is a little bit weaker than the UK, so that may have been a contributing factor, but it still looked incredibly unusual. But I think part of it could be down to other factors as well, such as where bets were getting matched, but also Betfair have the cross matcher, which means that if something's being backed somewhere else within the market, then it will offer up money on the other side. So it's possible that the process of backing something else was actually sending the price on melon out quite dramatically. But from my perspective, I didn't pick up on any heavy laying activity on that horse, because I would have seen it. All that I saw was that the price was just flying out and there was nothing stopping it. There was nobody willing to back it, and therefore the price just flew out, and yet there was backing activity in all of the other runners. But you know, one of the things that I do hope is that when we return to this meeting this time next year, it's a little less chaotic than it was on Saturday. The interesting thing was, after the chaos of Saturday, because the Irish cards are often run over 2 days and they do features on the Sunday, I sat down and messed around on Leopardstown on Sunday. I didn't bother doing much on the UK races, but I did have a go at Leopardstown and look at the chart from Sunday. It was much more along the lines of what I would have expected. And in fact, Sunday traded pretty well. In a few races on Sunday, I overhauled my entire total that I got on Saturday. So yeah, it was an interesting meeting, interesting activity, and the fact that they've announced like they're going to inquire into it, I think that they'll look at all of the detail behind it and probably conclude that there was nothing unusual going on. I didn't see anything unusual in the market. I think it was a combination of a number of factors that it just happens to hit at a particular inflection point which sent the market crazy. And you think about automated bots and other stuff like that, they were probably not helping in that particular scenario either. But yeah, interesting race meeting. Didn't do particularly well on it. Did much better on Sunday than I did on Saturday. But it's something that will go on my calendar for next year, because I think it was a particularly interesting setup, even if it didn't trade exactly the way that I expected this year. Hope you didn't get caught out on it. It was interesting to reflect on it, and we're not too far from Cheltenham now, so starting to turn my attention to how I'm going to do that. We've got half term coming up through February, so a slightly quieter time of the year, but I'm very focused now on Cheltenham and starting to reappraise and look at prior year Cheltenham videos and data to get myself ready for that huge meeting. It's going to be massive because of prize money and stuff when we come into March. So yeah, looking forward to that. But anyhow, there's a bit of reflection on the Dublin Racing Festival.